I think Thursday the central bank will cut to 0.25 and they'll make some other measures around QE. It is very significant. I mean, the RBA has done a form of QE in the past during the GFC, but I think we are in unprecedented times, obviously. And unlike the GFC, this is not just a financial crisis, it's one of a health crisis as well. So you've got two big unknowns there.
And when you say unprecedented, I've been saying the same thing. This is something we haven't dealt with. All the borders shutting down. It's not a wartime issue. We don't have that kind of money flowing towards making arms and things like that. Business is just stopping.
That's right. There is something that... See, the big problem with all this is there's so much going on that people don't see. It's not an ever-present thing. It's like the virus in a way. You can't see it, and yet it's killing people. But there's so much happening in the financial markets that the layman can't really see. I mean, they might see the share market going down or the Australian dollar collapsing, but there are huge ructions going on at the moment in global bond markets. Basically, with all the amount of fiscal stimulus that's being announced around the world, you're also going to see a need to issue bonds. But the problem is some of these bonds are being sold off. It's a bit complex, but there is a thing called this risk parity trade, which is a whole lot of investors have invested in the equities and they've leveraged up in equities, i.e. the stock market, but they've also done the same with bonds. And now they're having to adjust those positions, so they're selling off bonds. And this is really weird because usually you think, well, when equities go down, maybe the bonds go up, right? Because they're defensive. But the problem is now you're seeing bonds being sold off, which makes it very difficult for governments if they're trying to announce fiscal stimulus, because if they need to issue more bonds to pay for that, then it becomes harder for them to do, or it becomes at least more expensive. So this is the thing that I think people like finance ministers, certainly central bankers, will all be looking at, and it's indicative of what we're likely to see in the next few months.
And we've got Qantas today saying they're announcing 90% of their international flights going to be cut. I mean, we're talking about bailing out an airline. This wasn't even a conversation a month ago. Exactly,
Annalise, and I think, I mean, if anyone tells you they know what's going to happen in the next few months, call them out for it. I don't think you shouldn't listen to them. But if they say, this is what I think will happen in the next few months, if this happens, then you should listen to them. And my feeling is that I think this will become a very big political debate as well as to which national carrier might be nationalised if it gets to that point. I mean, Simon Birmingham this morning was saying, you've got to keep on having these airlines flying, you've got to keep the economy going, that sort of thing. But if you get to a point where there's restrictions for a really long period of time, you have to ask the question, how long can an airline keep paying its interest bills? How long can an airline keep flying without customers? And how long can the banks support such a company? I mean, banks aren't charities, and neither are central banks in a way. So this is why Thursday is going to be so important, because we're going to see just how much the central banks are looking to support the banks who are looking to support the businesses such as the QANTASes and the Virgins.
Because the line we keep getting from the banks is that they are in a really good position to weather this, that they are strong, they have the capital that they need. But this is pretty unprecedented. What do you think is going to be the first pressure point for the banks in this whole pandemic?
Well, that's true. The banks are strong, very strong comparatively around the world. Good, strong credit ratings. But how long can you, as I said, how long can you keep on supporting businesses who don't have customers, who can't pay their interest? Now, one of the first flashpoints in this is you see certain bank hybrids. That's just another way of saying banks package up loans to businesses and then they sell them off as bonds. And when they sell them as bonds, that's how banks raise their own money to then pay for those loans and do other things. And at the moment, we're seeing those bonds, those hybrids, start to get sold off in a big way because people think there's going to be big risks. People think that businesses won't be able to pay the interest. So therefore, that's a key source of bank funding, and we've seen the yields go up and the prices go down because they've been sold off. Now, that is clearly an indicator that the central bank will need to step in to help them provide liquidity in the market. And that's, again, what we'll see on Thursday from the government, just how bad that is. But that's a key flashpoint, is look at those sort of junk bonds and those hybrid bonds. That's an indication as to what people are thinking about the point at which companies will be stop paying their interest.
And when it comes to potential government stimulus package, so last week that $19 billion we got was way more than was predicted, and they said it's got to be scalable. Now it looks like it's really going to be scaled up again. What do you think is going to be the focus points for the government to keep the economy out of recession, if we can even do that now?
Yeah. Now, this is the question that is really difficult in a coronavirus shock to the economy versus a GFC style shock to the economy, because in the GFC you can sort of measure it, but with corona you can't measure the impact yet because we haven't seen it, and there's so many different and variable projections of how bad that will get. So it's a huge unknown, Annalise. Like you just don't know how bad that's going to get. So it would be sort of remiss of me to even try and attempt to answer that question.
Well, fair enough. Hopefully everyone else dealing with the crisis is as level-headed as you. Matt Cranston, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Annalise.